I'm glad you came today, and what I wanted to talk about, I turned it leaning forward. So what are we leaning forward into in gardening? Wow. You don't see it really as clearly as I do because I've been growing perennials and native plants for 42 years. And we are in the most transformational period in horticulture that has ever existed on Earth. It's not just, oh, we got a few new plants, oh, we're trying a few new things. No, this is big time transformation. Because what we're finally realizing as a culture and people who touch the earth, who are starting to touch the earth more affectionately, we're starting to realize that all these horticultural practices that people still do at a high level, especially a lot of the contractors, these practices took place in the conversations of people that have been dead for over 50 years. And we're still practicing those conversations of people that have passed away 50 years ago. So what I'd like to share with you first is how do the plants feel? You know how you feel, don't you? You know how you love what you love, you care for what you care for, you spend the time you have. You know a lot about yourself and the style and the practice of gardening you're dealing with right now. But have you ever wondered, how do the plants feel about me? So it's really a self-examination of, you know what you feel. You think any of that could change when you have an understanding of how the plants feel, about how they're being treated, loved, and cared for? What affection they're not feeling from humans? That they would actually love to have more sensitivity towards who they are? There's a thing we have to remember, or at least consider. We're not selling you products. This isn't bag of that or can of this, meadow in a can, or bag of whatever. We're selling you living things. Everything you touch and look at and appreciate in whatever way you want to or have grown up to do, those are living things. These are respiring living beings. And each one of these living things lived somewhere in a social community on Earth way before they were discovered by humans to be put in a pot. And they live with other social beings, sharing life intimately, reproducing happily, creating soil that was healthy, not industrial, like our soils are industrial soils. Our farm fields are industrial soils. They're not healthy soils anymore. They're chemically driven. So a lot of the plants are wondering, are humans going to somehow figure out how we can get back there? Or at least get a direction going so we can have healthier soils, healthier gardens. And the cool part is it's happening. That's what I'm a big fan of, is that we're all starting to look at plants and other creatures as neighbors and people we have to share a life with. And it doesn't mean they can't be beautiful in the way we want to appreciate them. And it doesn't mean we have to be afraid of them either, that they're going to hurt us or take something from us that we cherish. It's all about sharing. It's all about community. And the more we understand plants and insect relationships and where that's headed, maybe not to the way it was, but the way it can be. Because we're never going to go back to the way it was. Those prairies are long gone. And like Jerry Wilhelm said in one of my YouTubes, but we have to save the remnants. Any little remnant we can find of any little native fen, wetland, woodland, prairie, woodland edge, we have to save them. And if we save them, then we have to come to know them and understand how they live. But I want to get back into gardening a little bit, something we all do. So I have an Instagram. Let me show you something here. If I can find it. This is one of my favorite magazines. I love Gardens Illustrated because it's real. It talks about the people that garden. It gets into the intimacy of the garden. It's a great gardening magazine. And you see this on Instagram a lot. You see all these people, and what do they show you? Beautiful pictures of gardens. And they are stunning. It makes you almost get goosebumps. How beautiful. Look at that garden. Isn't that beautiful? But they never show you how they got there. Yeah, it's like showing you all this handsome food before you eat it with the little curly chocolate things on it, the little leaf they put on there. but you don't have any recipe. How do you make that? And well, you have to have a training of a chef for hundreds of, no, you don't. Chefs don't train for hundreds of years. They do learn, they come to know, they have to have training, you have to have an understanding, but they have passion and they have consistency of being. And all of you have passion and consistency of being. That's how you become successful with who you want to be and who you are. And all of you might not have the same equal amount of time to do something, and that's okay. Just pick and choose the things you can do with the time you have and do like you've always been doing, put your heart into it. But when you put your heart and love into it, put knowledge into it, put awareness into it, put patience into it. It's not an instant, these aren't instant gardens you're seeing here. And then the other thing it doesn't share with you is, how do you take care of this? What's the stewardship plan for this garden? Is it 25 hours per 1,000 square feet? And what do you have to know in those 25 hours to keep this garden healthy? Is it just weeding? No. That's what people see me sometime weeding out in Fontana, and I can sense the empathy they have for me when I'm weeding. Oh, look at that poor old guy. Too bad he never got out of high school. He could have had a real job. And people actually believe that gardening is just weeding. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Well, how can you believe gardening is just, oh, there's too much labor, Roy. You got to weed all that. No, you don't. Weeding is maybe 30% of gardening. There's so much more to gardening than weeding. Weeding's a part of it. So what are the other 70%? Well, let's see how you get here. How would you get here to this? What road would you take to have that picture and the hundreds of thousands of pictures you see on Instagram of beautiful gardens? My challenge to the people putting in beautiful gardens is, tell us how you do it a little bit. Tell us what time it takes. Tell us how you care for it. What's the stewardship plan? Send me a picture of this garden 10 years from now. Is it going to look the same? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you can keep the integrity of it. Maybe it changes, but it changes and becomes even more beautiful. That's what you hope for. And then the other thing is, what makes something beautiful? We all have different definitions of what beauty is. We all grew up in different places and different times and had different sensibilities. We all watched different TV shows, so we found different ways of beauty, found love in our lives through TV and marketing programs and all those things. So let's talk about this a little bit. And I just want to spend maybe 15 minutes here, and I want to walk around and look at gardens and see what the plants are saying to us as a gardener. What do we do here? What should I do? What should be happening with us, Roy? What do you think should be next? So I'll take you on a quick thought process. First thing is, there's not a plant on earth that says, thank God humans are mulching me with wood. Not one plant. So if you're using wood as a mulch, that's another conversation of people that have passed away 80 years ago started. And no one ever questioned it. Where on earth has wood fallen from the sky 3 to 4 inches per year around herbaceous plants? It doesn't happen. So plants have no genetic knowledge how to live in accumulated wood. They don't do it. And this is what happens to accumulated wood. It turns to fiberboard because it doesn't oxidize quickly. It's not like leaves. Leaves will fall to the ground and disappear the same year. This is wood mulch, below the 3rd year of wood mulch that still hasn't oxidized. So what can't happen with this on top of your soil?
Can't breathe.
The soil can't breathe. Air movement is reduced. What else is reduced?
Water.
Water can't get out. That's why people mow. I can conserve water. Yeah, but you won't get any water going back in because it's like fiberboard. If you get a ½ inch of rain, it's going sideways, not downwards. So and then what else can it do to a plant? As a plant flowers and the flowering stems die and the plant moves out sideways into new earth, what can't the plant do in this? It can't spread. It can't go into fresh earth. It chokes to death. We've put a collar of wood around the plant, so it doesn't, it just slowly lingers and dies. And as the plant slowly lingers and dies, oh boy, I gotta get out here and replace that. I gotta go to North. We don't care if you put more plants in. You wanna come out and spend $13 because you killed your plant with wood mulch? Come on out. But I'd rather you didn't do that. I'd rather you bought more plants because you keep enhancing and adding value to the garden. You're looking at the living and dying of roots to improve the soil. Jerry Wilhelm told me that every 3 years, the volume of roots of every plant you put in the ground recycles itself, reproduces itself. So think of all the organic matter. Every 3 years, that volume of roots, which is very extensive, dies and slowly replenishes itself. That's how organic matter is created in the earth. It's not by products you buy in a bag or a, you know, that's not what it's about, products. It's about putting plants in the earth that fit the site conditions you have. Let them create living and dying roots and constantly add and enhance to your garden as the soil conditions change and as the plants accept the new plantings you're putting in. Kind of like rebuilding your house or something. You buy an old home, you don't redo the whole house. You set a budget for it. We want to do the bathroom first. We want bathroom and kitchen. Okay. 4 years later, what do? Hey, let's do the upstairs bedroom so we can have guests over. Let's do the basement so the kids can come over and watch. You start budgeting and planning. If you put your garden in all at once, how can you care for that? You got to be over here, over there. That's too much. Just seed it in. I didn't know it's seeded. I didn't read the sign. All these things kept happening. The dynamics were at too high a level, and you couldn't really take care of it. So when you put in the first layer of plants, and that first layer of plants does one key thing: suppresses weeds. When you cut the foot candles of light down to 1,500 foot candles of light hitting the earth or below, weed seeds can't germinate. So the quicker you cut the foot candles of light, like in there, in this lamium, how many weeds do you think are going to pop through that right now? Nothing. I don't like that. I mean, I put up with this because we don't have the labor. We're not a botanic garden where we can send 2 guys out, 4 guys out all day to take care of things. We only have 6 people here. We take care of 43,000 square feet of gardens with 6 people, maybe 7, 6.5. But we do it. Sometimes we irritate our customers because we don't show up when we should because there's other things happening. But we do it because we have knowledge of plants and we know how to put the plants together in social systems of living. So this I wouldn't do because I'm not a big fan of monoculture. And the other thing the lamium does in the winter, when it snows, it mats down on itself and smothers itself out. So you've got large dead areas in the spring. And then it fills itself back in through the year. So eventually, if you come here, you might see this gone and we'll have more of a diverse, maybe plant sedge community in here if we have time. But for right now, I'm not worried about it. I'm okay with the lamium being there. So this
Is it contributing to the soil
Hmm?
by being there?
Part-
It's contributing to the soil by being there.
Oh, any root you put, weeds contribute to the soil. If you got a weed, leave it in until you figure out what else to do, because that root is contributing to the soil. Yeah, I wouldn't take anything out until you know what your next step's going to be to put something back in. You don't want bare ground. You don't want the solarization of your soil. That's why weeds are here to basically cover disturbed soil, so the sun doesn't solarize and kill the soil. So weeds are very important. They just got too much to do when you're plowing 6,000 acres. You know, it's hard for the weeds to heal that. So anyway, that was the first thing, just a simple discussion on think about wood mulch. I'm not telling you not to use it. I'm just telling you, think about it.
Well, what would you use instead of wood mulch?
Well, I'll show you right now. Okay, I'll just take any plant. Every plant that's ever appeared on Earth is self-mulching. All their stems, flowers, petals, leaves, it all falls to the earth every fall. It's a self-mulching system. The Potawatomi Indians weren't asking, what should we mulch the prairies with? There was no question like that. Everything is self-mulching. Every plant that appeared on Earth is self-mulching. So you have a living mulch. But I understand that's hard to do because people are used to. We grew up with mulch and we love it. Most Americans rather have mulch than plants. When the mulch truck leaves, oh, wow, look at how beautiful the house is. It's just been surrounded by 10, 20 yards of mulch. The contractors are happy. They just build you $60, $70 per yard of mulch. They build that out. They'll bill you every year for that 60, 70 yards of mulch. They're happy to do that. So what we do is we mow everything with mulching mowers, about 4 inches high. We leave all the stem fall, we leave it all there. And then we cover it up for some people with about a 1/2 inch of leaf mulch. Fontana tub grinds all their leaves. They collect 15 windrows of leaves. They tub grind it, and we put leaf mulch down over the top of the debris we leave, the stem and leaf fall, to keep humans happy. Because all humans just aren't ready to leave debris in the garden. We did that at Millennium Park, and as an example, because a lot of us, I think, in our culture are big fans of money, right? I think that's one of our key things. Okay, money's a big thing. It's not, how can I make myself healthier? That comes in second, money. So at Millennium Park, it took 150 hours to cut back the Lurie garden and haul all that away. So I went to Ed Euler, I think in 2009 or 2008, and I mowed an area in Delavan, 3,000 square feet. Everything lived. But nobody liked it because they thought we were lazy and we didn't rake all the debris out and we didn't remulch it. But every plant came back healthy as can be, and every plant was, yes, we're living in our own debris like our ancestors. We're living healthy lives again. So they put a mower into the Lurie garden, and they mowed the Lurie garden. They did it in 6 hours. So what's the difference? What's a 130-hour difference? What's that cost-wise at $60 an hour? How much money do you save, just financially? And the contractor initially was upset, but then wasn't upset. Why? Because that 130 hours went back into Millennium Park to do higher levels of things. It wasn't that people suffered financially. Let's redistribute those hours to make the park better. And every plant lived healthy lives because they lived in their own litter. And now they're mowing it, string trimming it. Certain areas are leaving certain plants with hollow stems there for bees to lay eggs. So there's more and more research being done, more and more thoughtful ways of cutting things back as we come to know more. So we don't stop learning, we don't stop asking questions, but we have to be open to change. And that's the beautiful, but even I'm the constant intern. I'm not an expert on anything. And I think by the time I hit 90, I might be unstoppable. You know, if I can get to 90, it's like buckle up. I'm gonna know a bunch of stuff. But right now, I just keep learning all the time. And I keep adding value then to what I can do and what I hope to do into the future. So I'll show you some of the differences. And what's this? Don't name it, but what is it anyway? If you name it. This is a Penta. This is an annual. You know what this annual knows right now in this pot? I better entertain humans or I'm going nowhere. Annuals know they better entertain you. You pick it up spontaneously. And they know they live a year, so they're not unhappy about that. That's who they are. They live a year and die. But boy, if they don't entertain a human right away, they'll get pitched in this pot, into the compost. So they know their whole purpose in life, in a pot, I'm an annual, I better entertain a human or I'm not going anywhere. I'll be in this pot and in someone's compost pile. Okay, so that's the life of an annual. Entertain me. And you're paying us, I don't know, how much do we charge for these? $6? Well, okay, good for you if you're buying. Okay. Now, this is a perennial salvia. Now this salvia, someone would actually buy today. Why would somebody actually buy this one today? It's got a flower on it. You're not going to buy, most people don't like to buy green things because they're unsure what it is. And that's not the plant's fault. When you're out looking and thinking about plants, you have to have an awareness that everything on the bench is going to bloom. So you might want to look, what can I get for blooming in August, September, June, July, and how can I put these plants together socially? And we'll discuss that after I show these, how we can do this in a social way. Now, this guy, I don't even have to tell you, you're not going to buy this today. There's no way none of you would walk out of here giving us $8, $9. No, right? You're not buying, there's no, why would you buy this? Unless you just felt so sorry for a Northwind. This is Campanula carpatica. Beautiful bellflowers. Stunning. You put this in the ground now, you get it watered, in about 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to root in, it's going to say, how you doing? Look at me. And I will continue to bloom for 4 to 6 weeks. If you prune me back, I'll come up with beautiful foliage. I can go underneath your roses. I can accent nepetas. If you put a nepeta with blue foliage in, my deep blue flowers can accent the soft blue with the nepeta foliage. You can be Monet. Once you understand the nature and the plants, who they are and how they come to be and how they grow, which seems like a lot to people, but you know, I know you can do it. You know why I know you can do it? You learned the alphabet, didn't you? How long did it take to learn the alphabet? And why did you need to learn the alphabet in first grade? What was the main purpose for that? Not to get an S on your report card is satisfactory. So you could read and communicate with people. You went all the way from A to Z. And that one of you are complaining today that there's not enough letters, are you? That son of a gun alphabet, when is the next letter coming? I'm waiting. I got things to say. I got words to create. I got to express myself. No one cares. There's 26. Look what you do with 26 letters. Come to know about 20 plants. Don't overwhelm yourself with all the new things. All this is new, that's new. Don't care. Come to know 20 plants and you can create thousands of combinations on 20 plants. And then when you need to add something, maybe a vertical element or a mounding or something blue, then you know why you want that. Find that plant. Then go out and research. Find vertical blue that blooms in June. Find vertical white that blooms in July and August. You're falling prey to marketing. When you buy all this new stuff, it's no different than buying all the new stuff that they market now. And the whole goal, like I told my nephew, you know when you're going to be successful? He goes, how? When you rent your first storage locker. When you run out of space in your home for all your stuff and you got to go out and rent a storage, you've bought enough stuff. You're going on your way to being a consumer at the highest level. And that has to be true. Why are there so many storage lockers? People just keep buying stuff. It goes from the house to the basement to the attic to the storage locker and then another storage locker. So, and this is a beautiful native plant. This is called yellow pimpernel, Tanidia. Tanidia flowers now. It has a beautiful umbelliferous flower, very soft looking and gentle. And you can weave this through a sedge matrix, a sedge garden in the shade. And I brought one of the sedges out. This is Carex bromoides. And if you use like a 20-to-1 matrix, 20 of these to 1 Tanidia, you can have this beautiful, soft, floating clouds of yellow in the garden. And then in 2 years, you can add some ferns when you have your budget set. In 3 years, you can put some mayaples in, or you can put some jack-in-the-pulpits in. But the sedges, your sedge matrix, this will suppress the weeds. In 3 years, it'll knit together. And then when it knits together, you can manage your weed population and almost cut it by 75, 80%. So this is your workhorse. The Tanidia is good because it has a soft, gentle look. And I'm not sure, but it also supports a predatory wasp. That you might hear the word wasp. I don't want any wasps around my house. But the wasp is predatory on ticks. So when you start spreading Tanidia through your woodland, you're actually attracting a wasp that becomes predatory on ticks. So you're creating a form of control for ticks. So it's not just one thing for one thing. And this is again what I keep learning. It's how many systems are we creating? How many different systems that we're even unaware of are we adding value to and creating and taking into another system that we don't know about, that when we do find out, we keep adding to that. So it's a never-ending process, but it can end because you can stop it. No, I don't want to learn anymore. I got reruns of Seinfeld to watch. I got boating to do. And that's okay. That's cool too, because that's choices you make. And people go, Roy, when is my garden done? I said, when you run out of opportunities for it, then it's done. But I think that same thing holds true in life. When you run out of opportunities for who you are and what you want to be and the things you see yourself becoming before our end, then you're done, aren't you? So I was told once, I can be joyful. You know, this guy told me, Roy, you can be as joyful as you want about everything you're doing, but don't become content. If you become content, you're done for. There's nothing wrong being happy and joyful. And I thought that's pretty cool. I always remember, it's fun meeting old guys and turning into an old guy, because then you can share that with people, what some other old guy told you. Okay, so anyway, the last plant I want to show you is This is Pachysandra. And you're, oh, but Pachysandra, this isn't Pachysandra. Oh, you must be mistaken. This is Pachysandra procumbens. It's native to the Appalachians. So it's not the Pachysandra you've seen with the shiny glossy leaves around most of the homes everywhere. This is our native one. It stays semi-evergreen, but has a much more bigger flower, bigger white flower, much more showy in the spring. Excuse me, I itched my nose. Okay, thank you. So we're using this as a ground cover in some of the sedge plants, just here and there. We spot it here and there. The idea is the sedge is still the workhorse to cover the ground with texture, and then we'll put this in to contrast the texture of the foliage and have the nice white flower. So it's again having that Monet moment. Create your patterns, your textures, your shades of blue and green. Other sedges have wider dark green leaves, so there's no end to the possibilities of what you can create as an artist. And a lot of gardening isn't just the gardening part, it's your signature as an artful person. And all of you, I never thought, and that was just me telling myself my own story. I'm not an artist. Well, who says I'm not? That was me saying I'm not. So I'm limiting all my possibilities because I'm making up stories about what I am and what I'm not. So when I started to learn not to make up stories that keep me from being what I can become, wow, I started to become powerful. Because now I can reach out and be who I never thought I could be. And that's why I look at the artist in the garden. Why not be creative? So at Northwind, we have our way of being. We try to educate, inspire, and cultivate. That's on our sign. But the other thing is have your bumper sticker be why not? You never know. So then if you screw up, wow, you learn something. That's why screw-ups are so important. So I'll get on to the part about creating your garden. And the first part is walk around and I'm not telling you not to buy anything. Find things initially that you like and make a list. I like this, I like that. Because that's the way it starts. I'd have never gotten married if I never had a date in high school. You get to high school, you got to ask somebody out. That's how you start your social way of being. You don't wait till you find the right person. That'll never happen. The right person's, who knows where that right person is. You start dating, and that's what plants are too. Plants are dates. I like you because you're blue. I like you because you're vertical. I like you because you're mounding. I like you because you have textural foliage. Make a list of what you like, and then see how they live compatibly in what conditions. So every plant you choose has to live in the conditions you have for them to live in. So you really have to understand the conditions that you have for these plants to live. That's the most important part. Light conditions, soil conditions, and then if they can share and live in those conditions modestly healthy, then you start creating your combination. So you start with your list, making sure they understand the conditions you're asking them to live in, that's a possibility and a capability. And then all I do, and this is probably another thing, oh, geez, Roy, so I got to sit and plan all this? Well, you don't have to. But I remember growing up in Berwyn, one of the big expressions was, and I hated this because I just wanted to be a kid, but the adults are telling you, Roy, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail, geez, I'm 13. Can't I just be a kid for a while? Maybe when I'm 20, you can run that by me again. But then it's kind of true. If you fail to plan, you might not fail, but you just won't be satisfied with what you have. And your yard becomes yard work, not joyful gardening, because you're moving too many things or things died or reseeded everywhere and it looks messy. So you start in the winter. Gardening's year-round. It's not just spring, summer, up to July, then jet skiing, beach, bowling, and fishing. Gardening goes from year-round. It can be 12 months a year, but yet picking and choosing the time you have to do it. So if it's a snowy Sunday and you got your list, you start with blank grid paper. Each one equals a square foot. Put down a rough size. I'm going to do 100 square feet. So you do something 10 by 10. And you can meander it, you can curve it, you can play with it all you want. Don't be rigid. Gardening is something, you're not building a building. You're not doing anything rigid, and you're not killing anybody if it falls apart. It's not going to collapse on anybody and destroy families, children, and parents. It's very fluid. So you get your grid paper out, take your plants, your list of plants, and then growth rate and growth habit. How are these plants going to grow from youth to maturity? And simply you look at, like the salvia is blooming now. Okay, when that salvia blooms, that salvia was probably 3 inches tall 4 weeks ago. And it's starting to bloom now, and it's almost 24 inches tall. So that means it's grown 21 inches in 4 weeks. That's its growth rate, right? It grew 20, and every plant has a growth rate, just like humans have a growth rate, mice have a growth rate, elephants have a growth rate. And your growth rate is, we're going to get anywhere from 5 feet to 7 feet tall. Your arm's not going to keep growing for the rest of your life. Your arm's out here. Every living thing has a growth rate. And then a growth habit. What's the growth habit of this salvia? Mounding or vertical? Vertical. There you got it. Now you know salvia. That's particular salvia. That's Salvia pratensis. And it wouldn't hurt to learn the Latin name too. Like if all of us were trapped on an island together, I'd probably get to know your first and last name in about a month. Because that's just how we are socially. We all know first and last names, we befriend people. And if you just call that the pretty plant with the blue flowers, you're not going to get to know that plant that well. But when you learn about it as Salvia pratensis, and that's why if you start with 20 plants, you can learn, you don't have to say the Latin name correctly, you can, but don't feel bad if you don't say it correctly. Just understand why it was named and where is it native to. Understand who it lived with in other countries. Where did it live? What were the conditions? And again, that's in the winter. You might take a half hour and look up 7 plants. That's all. But what you'll find is how you start to change emotionally. When you learn those 7 plants or 6 plants that night, and you go to bed thinking about it, and you wake up in the morning, you forget all about it. But then, that one salvia, why was it? Where was it from? Central Europe, or was that Central Spain? You start to remember. It starts to become part of you, with all the other things you have to do. And then your gardening becomes more emotional. It's not just always that pretty. It's always that healthy. And as things get healthier in your garden, you become healthier, and the people you share your garden with become healthier. And the soil becomes healthier, the insect populations change, not dramatically, but they'll change in a better way. So you put down growth rate and growth habit for your plants you chose, mounding, vertical, how big they get, and you put it on your grid paper. Put them together. I put 3 here, 4, oh no, that one will get too tall too quickly. It's going to shade out the short one, or just won't get too mounding and spread too fast. It's going to shade out the one that's slower. You'll start to see, and it's no different than playing the violin. At the violin, if you buy one and start practicing, you're not going to Badger High School and give a concert right away. It'll take you 6 to 7 years till you feel good enough to do it, right? And you have to practice. But the ride is the fun. The joy of gardening isn't the having and wanting, it's the doing. There's nothing more fun than gardening if you let it be fun. If you wait till June to start weeding and the weeds are 3 feet tall and you can't find your perennials and you haven't had a chance to get out, that's no fun, it's labor. Who wants to do that? But if you're staying on top of the weeds, they never get more than 1 inch tall, and we use our Dutch push, we just hoe every 2 weeks. It's not like it's killing us. And we hoe 1,000 square feet in 75 minutes. So it's not like it's consuming your life either. 1,000 square feet's a lot of square footage, but you have to time it right. Kind of like when they used to launch the space shuttle. They didn't just say, Bob, roll the shuttle out there. I want to throw it in space today. There was a reason they picked a particular time and day to put the shuttle into orbit. And you have the same thing with weeds. You have a weed window. By rain and temperature, that'll gauge the weed growth. So you have a weeding window and you get out there between those days. So you're not tied to one day. And then when you put your drawings on your grid, you come up with this, and this is what I did for a sedge garden. I put my sedges square, triangle, and circle. I grouped the sedges together based on what textural changes I wanted. And I put leatherwood fern in between them. It's an evergreen fern. Scattered them in, and that's a simple start. But I want to cover, like that whole area, I want to cover, what do I have? 50 square feet. And to take care of 50 square feet for me for the year, wow, that's half of a TV commercial, really. You can, 50 square feet, I can hold that by the time most of the work is getting the hoe out of the garage and coming here. To take care of it every 2 weeks is like too easy. And when you find that the effectiveness of having consistency in limited amounts of time, it just can't be but joyful. And every time you show up, you'll see and witness something different. Every time you come outside and you see the plants changing, you'll become a witness to other trees leafing out, the timing of life. And that becomes somewhat of a miracle too, because a lot of times we never have to pay attention to it. We're on our way to Sonic, to a burger, we take the car, we drive over here. Everything happening in between those rides, we don't know what's going on anymore. Try doing that on horseback. How many things do you think you'd see if you were on horseback going to Sonic to get your burger? You'd see trees leafing out, critters along the road, butterflies. Wow, there's a lot going on. Well, you hop in your car, you got music, boom, 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 I'm there, I'm home. And then what do? We put the TV on and watch whatever you watch. And again, I'm part of that culture. I grew up with a TV. I had no idea what it was like to talk at a dinner table. Boom, TV on. Out, I ate, jumped over my grandma, went and laid down, watched Huckleberry Hound. Couldn't wait. Couldn't wait for Huckleberry Hound to come on. Ate like that, and my parents were okay with that because I was a kid and there was nothing to talk about. But there was. When my parents grew up, there was conversations they had. So anyway, what I like to do, we'll go on a field trip now. And what we're going to do is we're going to assess the garden. And I'll ask you some questions, and you don't have to be right and you can't be wrong. It can just be, what do you see? It's mostly what do you see and feel here? And it's not about liking or disliking, it's about creating and moving into the future. Because there could be things, textures you don't like or do like. Because when I work with my class on perennial plant communities, I don't criticize their patterns, but I let them know how much work they're getting themselves into, and if they're aware of that volume of work, because they can change that before they put it in. And that's why I wrote the No Maintenance Perennial book. It's know the maintenance before you do it, so you don't get yourself into something that you can't get yourself out of. And why spend all that money and realize that you can't take care of it? So when you look at this garden, what do you see? But
Shapes, varying height, beauty. It's all colors, from light green.
it's all green.
Kind of separate, not all.
Did you see any plant more dominant than the other?
Maybe that one.
This one? Any others?
Yeah,
There's one there.
Well, yeah, this is starting to creep around.
There you go. This is an Aster divaricatus. So now now you got two architectural pieces here, because that's not spreading around. The Euronchus? Okay, we got those two. With this Aster, there's quite a bit of it. And when we only have so much we only have that much ground to work with, we've got one plant that's taking up maybe 30 to 35% of the garden, and we can add other elements to that. And what else do you see where you see bare ground? See, we did the homeowner trick here. We had bare ground there and bare ground over there. What did we do? What did we do to that? We covered it with mulch.
Yeah.
No, you know.
Mulch on it.
Yeah, that's leaf mulch. We don't want to
that
cover
is-
bare ground with mulch. We want to cover bare ground with more plants. And that's what happens if you go by all the Walgreens stores. As the perennials keep dying, Home Depot and their parking lots, the perennials keep dying, they just put more mulch in to cover where all the plants are, and in 10 to 15, 20 years, you got one daylily over there, there's two sedums over there, there's a spirea over there. and the rest of the parking lots are all mulch because everything that was initially put in passed away. It didn't have the opportunity of being consistent, and it didn't have the knowledge of how to care and love those plants to take them into a healthy future. So right now, when I look at this, you're right. I would take out a big sweep of asters here. I would take out all the asters through here and leave this little corner and that little corner. And I got all this open space, and I would redefine what am I going to put in here. Who's going to live well with these two big aruncus? Would it be more blue hostas out here? Would it be more ferns? Or would I make this blue hostas and put ferns in between them all the way back here? And what could I put in here that would accent the ferns and the blue hostas? And then maybe that would be initial solution. And that doesn't mean 6 years later you don't change your mind. And that's called gardening. You might say, you know what, I got too many blue hostas, they got too big, I'm going to divide them, I'm going to take the blue hostas out, move them over there, and I'm going to bring in maybe another element of height in here, maybe some other asters that are taller and upright. I'm taking the white asters out, and I'm going to put another group of fern. You know, you keep, but the whole thing is compatibility. It's making sure what you bring in has the compatibility to live together, yet add, advance, and enhance what's already here. Because it's not bringing in other elements or other plantings that have no relationship to what's here. That becomes like a ketchup stain on a shirt. You know, if you bring in other plants that really have no relationship to the texture, the bloom time, or anything else going on, then all they're going to see is that distinction between that and everything else. And if something's beautiful here, they won't see that. People won't see it because this is so distracting. So the key is that fluid motion of plants living together. But what I saw here, and that's why I thought I'd bring you over to show, there's way too many Aster divaricatus. And what they did, they've spread into this. They've created this because they kept spreading by short runners. And we just kept letting it happen because, again, we're not a botanic garden with a large staff that can take care of all this. So now that we see it, we might change that this fall, or when there's time, we'll do something in here. But it's that kind of assessment that you just don't do occasionally. When you start making these changes, you can't help yourself. You'll start assessing people's yards when you're driving by them. You'll start everything you'll be assessing. Oh, if they had this one plant there, that would look so much. You won't be able to stop yourself because you'll start to see relationships and how they occur and why is that. And then when you see other plants, like that Aruncus horatio, what's the growth rate on this? Fast. This is almost waist high. This is 36 inches tall. 4 weeks ago, it was about this high, maybe 4 inches. So this is still May 20th or something. This plant's grown 34 inches in 4 weeks. So if there were other plants, under here, but the nice thing is, this has a mounding growth habit too. It's not vertical, it's tall and mounding. But then you have to understand, who am I going to place this with? Because if you put this with something else that's out here and everything is too short, what we would do if we did bulb, we would have bulbs in here, maybe a little taller bulb layer in here that don't inhibit the growth of the plants. But this is a good example of growth rate, growth habit. The phlox are catching up, and eventually the phlox will be taller than the Aruncus.
Excuse me, what is this plant?
That's a geranium,
What kind?
Roseanne. Yeah. And you can see,
Are they native?
no, they're native to Earth. Yeah, they're not from Neptune or Mars or, so they're, but what, yeah. So Roseanne, you can see that's its growth habit, that's its growth rate. And you gotta go back to just start with 20 plants. If you get caught up in the marketing of plants, you'll be so confused. Because it's so I can get this coneflower, that coneflower, I can put some of the things don't have genetic knowledge how to live here. So you want to start with plants that understand where they're living. This is southeast Wisconsin, it's not Georgia, we're not in Arkansas, we're not in Washington State, we're not in Virginia. This is where we live. So you have to look at the genetic capability of plants to live within the kind of conditions we have.
So how much do you use just plain straw for mulching, or how does
This is the debris. We mowed it. Everything is in its own. If you walk through the gardens, you'll see some mulch here, but all the gardens you walk through, you'll see everything living in its own stem fall and leaf fall. We mow everything. We leave it. We use a mulching mower with mulching blades, and we go over it 5 or 6 times to cut it up.
over the hostas too?
Everything. Yeah, this gets mowed.
Wow.
The mower I have can cut plants this high.
Wow.
How do you do that in a small garden?
Well, it's a walk behind. I can take it and go in here like this, and it pulls me through. It's a self-propelled mulching.
Do that in the spring or fall?
We do it in the fall, and we do it in the spring too.
You mow everything?
Everything gets mowed. We used to haul it all away. The first time we did that was 2003, before we did Lurie Garden. And I did it in the far corner of Northwind. I mowed that. And that was before we mowed the park in Delavan. I didn't want to commit to doing a mowing outside of Northwind and have the whole thing screw up, because I look dumb enough most of the time without being dumber than, with things I tell people. So I did the back, and then Steve and Colleen came out and looked at it. Oh, we got to clean that up. It's a mess. And it was a mess. It took me almost a full bottle of wine to get used to that. It was messy because I'm so used to mulch, putting mulch around everything.
Roy, is there anything that you don't cut in fall that you leave for spring intentionally?
Oh yeah, we leave things, not intentionally, because I have to do it because we earn a living. If I was at Lurie Garden and that was my job as a head of horticulture, I'd leave things intentionally. I'd show people, but we're on the clock, and if I try to explain to people we're leaving this for that, well, geez, Roy, I don't like the way it looked. I got to get stuff done, and we're saving people money by mowing, but they still want the mulch, so they pay for the mulch and go on. But I see change coming. I see sometimes people will be asking us to do that, and I have to learn more about it too, because there's a lot more to learn than just generalities about a bee. Just like each one of you here are unique to the world, and there will never be another you. As long as this planet exists, you are the only you that will ever exist on this planet. Isn't that cool? And that's why I thought to myself, boy, I better buckle up and do some things. If I'm the only Roy that's ever going to be here, I don't want to leave here and not having done anything. I watched enough Gunsmoke. I don't need to watch too many more reruns of Gunsmoke. I did that as a kid. Okay, I got that done. So, but it's kind of a nice thinking process, because sometimes we get overwhelmed, and again, that's my story, with just getting through the day. And then you get through the next day, and you get through the next day, and then you realize you've gone through a whole year and you haven't changed much. You haven't really, and that's the story I want to keep changing. I don't want to tell myself, well, you were busy, Roy, or well, you had to go see family. That's things I make up to keep. And that's kind of why I do the talks. It's like I could be somewhere else today. But I want to share with you some of the things plants have shared with me as I watch them become who they are. And then it becomes your choice for all of you. What are you going to do with this knowledge of plants, and how are you going to listen to them? And I'm not listening. That's all crap. I'm not listening to plants. They got nothing to say. A tree is a tree, and that's okay. People are like that. A tree is a tree. But again, every tree, there's no other tree like that on earth. With that branching, nowhere else. That's the only tree you'll find with that exact branching living on earth. Isn't that cool? So a tree is not a tree. But through communication, if you share this with somebody else and they share that with somebody else, we can reach hundreds of thousands of people by just sharing what we feel and know, on and on and on and on. And that's how I see us creating solutions to our future. Just keep communicating with all the people we know, and then all of a sudden we see change taking place, and for good, cool things. There's nothing wrong with making your earth healthier and more aesthetically pleasing for not just us, but other things. So thanks for your time.
Well, do you use straw? Can you use regular straw?
Oh, if you want to use straw, yeah, you put straw down as a mulch.
As a mulch,
yeah.
just buy a bale of straw?
Yeah, that's what we do on some things.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you have a question too, that's fine.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It actually made me cry. I have a new invasive. It looks sort of like this. Is this like called cleavers or bed straw?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Taking over everything. It made me cry. I've been
Well, you got to go through and pull it.
just keep pulling
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Because it's an annual, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
that
if I
is.
get it
Yeah,
before it seeds,
yeah. Got the seed bank down, and it's easy to pull out. It's like you
it's
rake
easy
it
to
out,
pull out. It's
and
just that it's
you got an ocean
got
of.
a
Yeah.
acre and it's almost everywhere. I don't know where it came from.
Well, it just it's the seeds are laying there in your soil. So when you expose or change the conditions and more light energy gets there, then that light energy, or you cultivated the soil and brought the seeds up to the surface. If it was something else prior to that,